the legal loophole that saw 29 rug kingpins expelled to the U.S. Last week saw an unprecedented number of Mexican rug cartel kingpins and traffickers transferred from Mexico to U.S. custody. A total of 29 in one day occurred with half a dozen extraditions. On average, for the last 7 years, Mexico has extradited around 60 cartel figures each year. I didn't know they did that much. So far, over half of that amount has been sent to the U.S. so far this year. Most of the 29 have been captured in recent years during the AMLO administration, with several stretching back to over a decade in Mexican custody. Many had fought their extradition with numerous legal tactics and amparos seen to halt the legal process needed for extradition to the U.S. Z40, the CDN Los Zetas leader, even filed paperwork denying that he is the person listed in the indictments. That's not even me. One El Güero, a Los Chapitos lieutenant, had only been arrested days earlier in February. I feel like that is the lead right there. That's the story. That makes it look real. That you could get popped off on Tariff Tuesday and then by Friday you in the U.S. So how did over a decade of legal proceedings for extraditing cartel members fall by the wayside after trade negotiations and the designation of cartel groups and FTO, foreign terrorista organizations? What provision is Mexico using to justify bypassing the legal extradition process in Mexico? Now here is Mayo screaming at Mexico and saying, y'all better come get me. Y'all better come get me. Y'all better honor this extradition treaty. Shit, you're not honoring it with me. They snatched me. And they turned around and said, shut your ass up. And they sent 29 and broke all of the extradition rules that he's saying they need to uphold. Our answer was confirmed during the first hearing of a longtime DEA target, Rafael Caro Quintero, in New York Federal Court. Judge Robert M. Levy clarified in court Caro Quintero was expelled from Mexico under a provision with the national security law, which permits the Mexican government to remove an individual without undergoing the formal extradition process. There's some kind of loophole that permits them to snatch him. U.S. authorities employ different terms. Transfer, said the Attorney General's office. Extradition, said the White House. Expulsion, said the State Department. All of these guys can't get their own shit together. Mexican Prosecutor General Alejandro Gertz clarified in a press conference that it was not an extradition, in accordance with the bilateral treaty on the matter between the two countries, but a sending. So some say sending, some said transferring, some said expelling, some said extraditing. Y'all got y'all heads up your whole ass. Everybody is trying to double talk everybody. It's crazy. Sending. Security Secretary Omar Garcia Harfuch spoke of a transfer. Gertz explained that the operation was carried out at the express request of the United States and that Mexico responded based on the national security law and the constitutional article that empowers the head of the government, President Claudia Sheinbaum, to preserve it. Gertz has pointed out that Washington presented Mexico with a formal written and concrete request to carry out the operation specifically against the 29 rug lords within the framework of the Palermo Convention, the UN agreement to combat transnational organized crime that establishes guidelines on extradition, a recourse that the official insisted was not used. This is crazy. I don't know what the hell they got going on. There was a well-founded request from the United States government that was the reason why the whole procedure was triggered. He said. Gertz added that the institutional mobilization was immediate. Within hours of receiving the request, the National Security Council was convened. The analysis was made at that meeting. The legal basis were established to ensure they were fulfilled and the procedure was carried out. It was a timely matter, he indicated. Expulsions. Rather than extraditing the cartel leaders to the U.S., they instead were expelled under Mexico's national security laws. These expulsions did not need to be processed through the legal system and do not fall under the extradition treaty signed by both countries. So they threw them through a loophole and they landed over here. That's what happened. in every sense of the word. They threw them through a loophole and they landed here. Regarding U.S. and Mexico's extradition treaty signed in 1977 and updated in 1997, there are several classifications for removing someone from the country in the United States for legal proceedings. Should the criminal have U.S. or dual citizenship, like CDN leader El Huevo, they can be quickly deported without the need for several hearings, as the U.S. has a right to prosecute its own citizens. Extradition is a legal procedure in which a Mexican judge has to grant a formal request from the United States in which evidence and prosecution plans are presented. This process can lead to years of delays, including amparos or injunctions being filed to suspend immediate extradition without a full hearing and process. Seldom used is a provision not included in the treaty but part of Mexico's constitution, Article 89 for national security laws, that allow for the expulsion of persons, including Mexican citizens, from the country should they pose a threat to national security of the country. Clearly, drug cartels, especially with the new terrorist designation, fit that bill. Shit. We almost done right here. The unaliving penalty, the termination penalty option. This expulsion allows for the U.S. to seek the unaliving penalty or termination penalty in several cases, including Caro Quintero's, as normally the treaty does not allow for capital punishments to be sought as part of their extradition, according to the Article 22 of the Mexican Constitution. The DOJ, in their press release announcing the transfer of the 29 prisoners, several had their potential sentences listed as termination penalty. However, Gertz has stated that none of the bosses handed over can be terminated. There it is. That's exactly what Fernando was talking about. We have a very clear agreement in the sense that legislations like Mexico's, which does not have that punishment, must be respected in the countries where we have an agreement, he indicated. When an operation is subject to an international convention, as in this case, the conditions of that convention must be respected. Several kingpins, including Caro Quintero and Vicente Carrillo Fuentes, pleaded not guilty, while lower-level figures may plead guilty and likely cut deals to testify against higher-ups. El Hummer entered a guilty plea last week in his case, just as Z40 and Z42 were sent to the U.S. Still remaining in Mexico prisons are notable figures like Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo and Abigail González Valencia El Queenie.